Hi there, welcome to this week's edition of The Wrap. In this week's edition, it's summertime and everyone has that Dezemba buzz. Now, our GDP is no exception and she just got her bikini line waxed. The downside, of course, is that we're now in the thick of a COVID-19 second surge and we're worried that there may be new restrictions imposed. Yet, as always, hope springs eternal across South Africa even in these difficult times. Our country's top scientists are getting top recognition, and we're pumped about a new petrol app. We also bring you the latest political news in our accountability monitor, and spoiler alert, we know the plotline to The Crown Season 20. Let's dig in. In our big story this week, it's official. SA is in the midst of a COVID-19 second wave. Health Minister Zweli Mkhize made the announcement on Wednesday night after a number of super spreader events caused an exponential growth in cases. SA recorded over 6,000 new cases on Wednesday, a number not seen since August. Mkhize said the majority of new cases were from the Western Cape, Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. The rise in cases in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal is exponential, he said. But this wave is a little different to the first one. The peak of the age of those infected is between 15 and 19. Mkhize said this was because of a large number of parties where young people are drinking booze, not wearing masks, or practicing social distancing. This has led to super spreader events, Mkhize said. Because most of these cases are asymptomatic and young people tend to move around a lot, you can expect infections stemming from them to spread pretty quickly. We don't know whether the country will face new restrictions now, but judging from Mkhize's statement, if it were up to him, parties and large gatherings would be severely limited this December. We're waiting on news from President Cyril Ramaphosa about the next steps. It's worth noting that many people who previously wanted the government to stop imposing harsh restrictions are now calling for it to impose those same restrictions. It may be too late to prevent a second wave, but it's up to us to make sure it claims as few lives as possible. But it's evident from these developments that teenagers are at the heart of the fact that SA is now in a second wave. And in our view, the kids are not all right. First, there was the scare in Cape Town when a bunch of young people went clubbing at Tin Roof. Many became ill and had to be quarantined, but that was not the wake-up call that it should have been. Now the Matric Rage event in Belito has been declared a super spreader event. Central to the problem are these Matric Rage parties, where matrics flock to seaside towns to celebrate the end of their high school careers. Parties like these are the biggest reason for the exponential growth in cases in parts of the country, the Department of Health said this week. Most of those who are carrying and spreading the illnesses are between the ages of 15 and 19. They're mostly asymptomatic and are spreading the virus unknowingly. Gauteng authorities are in the process of tracking and tracing about 1,300 matrics who attended the Belito event. Rage organizers told the Daily Maverick that COVID-19 restrictions were in place, including a ban on booze at parties. Many matrics then opted to party elsewhere where no restrictions were imposed. From the start of the pandemic, the concern has understandably been for the elderly, who were most at risk of developing severe COVID-19. Younger people have had milder forms of the illness and have been considered lower risk, so they've flown under the radar, until now. A sense of social solidarity seems to be sorely missing for many of our young people. In a country as unequal as ours, it is disheartening that a sense of community has not seeped into the consciousness of our youth, especially during such a critical time. But young people are not the only ones at fault here. Their ability to foresee the consequences of their actions biologically isn't fully developed. Teenagers are, by nature, risk-taking creatures. That's normal. That is why they have parents to help them make good decisions. Let's do a better job of educating ourselves and our youngsters. No one is immune. Now, SA is certainly home to some amazing people, and billionaire philanthropist Bill Gates knows it. On his blog this week, Gates, whose foundation with his wife Melinda has poured millions into medical research globally, singled out Professors Salim Abdul Karim and Quraisha Karim for their work in the fight against HIV and AIDS. The husband-wife team are both experts in infectious diseases, and Salim chairs the group of scientists advising the government on COVID. Both have been at the forefront of SA's fight against HIV/AIDS for years. Gates hailed their upbeat attitude and said their work in the HIV field had helped prepare the country better for COVID-19, according to Times Live. He also singled out Dr. Kopano Matlwa Mabaso for her sophisticated effort in combating childhood stunting from malnutrition. She also happens to be the acclaimed author of Coconut, among other books. It must be the African sunshine that keeps us shining. Now, you can order petrol from an app on your phone straight to your car. Business Insider reports that the app, called Refuel, brings petrol or diesel to your car at the same price you'd pay at a petrol station. It's already available on the Apple and Play stores. It's currently only available at corporate venues like office parks, but residential users will soon be able to access it too. It sounds uber convenient, and that's the last time you'll have to panic when the empty tank light pops up in your car. Domestic workers and farm workers could earn minimum wage by 2022 if new regulations are agreed to, Roundup reports. And yes, that means that right now, domestic workers and farm workers don't have to be paid minimum wage. But most commissioners at the National Wage Commission want that to change. They've also recommended that the national minimum wage be increased from 20 Rand and 76 cents to 21 Rand and 68 cents an hour because of the devastating effect that COVID-19 has had on the poorest households. Look, that's really the bare minimum. As the Commission has pointed out, the current minimum wage is still below the poverty line. In SA, you're considered impoverished if your household of 4 earns below 3,360 Rand a month. They also said that initial research showed the increase would not place an extra burden on employers. Domestic workers are entitled to about 15 Rand 60 an hour currently. You do the maths, but if you're paying yours anything under 125 Rand a day, you're breaking the law. Now, after a depressing winter, hiding inside and binging on carbs, our GDP has bounced back with its beach body all ready for summer. If you remember April to June this year, it's probably because you didn't go out at all. This made for one of the most dire quarters for economic activity. But it looks like you guys made up for it big time in the following quarter, July to August. Latest data shows our gross domestic product, which is the amount of goods and services produced by the country, for that period grew by 66.1% compared to the previous quarter. This was way better than the experts were hoping for, but we've still got a long way to go. The increase in GDP still doesn't take us to pre-lockdown levels, but it is good news anyway, and even more motivation for us all to do Dezemba responsibly so that more economy-crushing restrictions don't have to be imposed. Our GDP has just had her bikini line waxed, guys. Don't let her down. Now, if there's one thing we've learned this year, it's that 2020 giveth and 2020 taketh away. One of the most unexpected losses has been Nkosingile Pile Olpa Selepe, known by her stage name G65. Now, Selepe became a viral sensation with her unorthodox Amapiano hit Obani Lababantu in November 2020. Her niece, Sibu Mpungose, confirmed her death on Twitter on 9 December. She died 2 days after she tested positive for COVID-19. Nkosingile inspired many to never give up on their dreams after releasing her single at the age of 65. She said in an interview, "I'm asking, who are these people? What I'm saying is don't hold back on your dreams because of people." The PhD candidate and former teacher previously released gospel albums and children's nursery rhymes in isiZulu, but none were as successful as her Amapiano hit, with many on social media playfully comparing her to the likes of Beyoncé collaborator Busisiwa. Another Brexit deadline missed. Yes, alas, the UK and the EU now have 3 weeks to figure out how they're going to keep trading with each other. On Wednesday, leaders from both parties met for a 3-hour dinner to hash it out, and still made a hash of it. As European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen hilariously put it, despite a lively and interesting discussion, the two sides' positions remained far apart. Well, isn't that lovely? What were they doing? Having endless cups of tea? We're sure British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, a leader in the nationalist right-wing vein, is a riveting dinner companion, but millions of livelihoods and key industries are hanging in the balance. A quick explainer. The UK made the momentous decision to leave the EU in 2016, the first and only country to do so in the powerful bloc's 63-year history. Brexit already happened in January, but that was just politically. They've since had an 11-month transition period to work out the all-important trade agreement, or the UK exits the EU with a disastrous no deal at the end of the year. In more UK news, we love this story via courts. UK Royals-in-Chief Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip may become COVID-19 vaccine influencers. Unnamed sources told the press that the royal couple may let it be known that they've received a COVID-19 vaccine, a move that could combat anti-vaccine sentiment and disinformation in the UK and beyond. Speaking of vaccines, the UK has started to roll out its own vaccine program, and Canada will soon too. While you may have heard that South Africa lagged in making a payment to be included in a global vaccine rollout initiative called COVAX, we explained this week that it appears to be a little more complicated than that. You can read our explainer on explain.co.za. The real question is whether vaccines will be equitably rolled out to all, and with wealthier countries buying up doses by the millions, this isn't guaranteed. But President Cyril Ramaphosa promised this week that SA would have access to vaccines for at least 10% of the population by mid-2021. So there's hope. Now, is it doom for Zoom after the boom? How many Zoom meetings have you had this year? Yeah, we've lost track too. Last year, Zoom had on average 10 million daily meeting participants, and it now has 350 million. The unicorn tech startup, so-called for its $1 billion valuation in 2017, has seen its revenue quadruple since 2019. But now this unicorn may lose its horn. Its share price took another knock after news about COVID vaccines and the prospect of a return to office normality. And now for news from our accountability monitor. Former President Jacob Zuma's corruption trial has been postponed again. Isn't that just a South African proverb? That's right. The former president's arms deal trial will now only go ahead in February 2021, a court decided this week. This was due to technical reasons. Zuma is facing allegations that he took a bribe from French arms company Thales during the 1999 arms deal. Zuma's been fighting off these charges in the courts for over a decade. But don't worry, he's got plenty of other legal battles to fight while he waits for February to roll around. It's ruined politicians, journalists, honest civil servants, and even threatened entire institutions like SARS. But now we can finally say, good night, rogue unit narrative. Yet another judge delivered an epic put-down of one of Public Protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane's reports this week. And with that, the rumor of a rogue unit at our tax collecting authority which spied on politicians was finally put to bed. Turns out, Mkhwebane's finding that the unit existed and that a number of politicians should lose their heads over it was all balderdash. Curiously, all of these politicians happen to be enemies of Zuma. P.S. If you want a detailed explainer on what the whole saga was about, read this great take in the Financial Mail by an insider. Now, in this week's episode of How to Get Away with Corruption, the ANC has decided that its Secretary-General, Ace Magashule, should not step down over allegations of corruption after all. Kind of. If you solve for X, carry the 2 over and find the square root of the number of ANC members in the Thuli House, well, you virtually need a degree in advanced calculus to understand exactly what the party intends to do about corruption. See, the ANC previously said Magashule and others charged with corruption should step down from their positions. Then Magashule became one of the charged persons, and that decision apparently went up in smoke. Several legal opinions later, the party has now concluded that Magashule must appear before its Integrity Commission, a small committee of party elders who are supposed to deal with internal problems in the party, or as some like to call it, the place where complaints go to die. Critics say the commission rarely holds cadres to account, and Magashule will be counting on this when he appears on 12 December. On the other hand, it shows that the party is exhausting its internal processes, which is important where employment disputes are concerned, and following processes to the T is one of Ramaphosa's strengths. Now that's it from us at The Wrap for this week, a product of explain.coza, simple news summaries for busy people. Remember to share the love, tell your friends to sign up for our updates at explain.coza/subscribe. Till next time, goodbye from the team.